They didn't just demolish the wrong cabin, they also accidentally scattered my wife's ashes across the rubble like it was organic fertilizer, and then they sent me a garden center coupon, as if that had helped me replant my life. My entire world was destroyed in one afternoon by an HOA that never bothered to verify property lines. No notice, no court order, just a cold calculation that I was too insignificant to fight back. Wherever you're reading this, drop a comment below. I'm curious how many of you have been through this. I thought I'd left the legal world behind, retiring among pine trees with a teapot, old books, and Eleanor's urn. But who knew the HOA would see my cabin as a pimple in their Pine Rest landscape rejuvenation campaign? No call, no letter, no seal, not a single warning. I came back from a short business trip to find my beloved log cabin reduced to a pile of debris, fresh bulldozer tracks still etched in the dirt. If you've never seen a middle-aged man cry while muttering land law clauses, you've missed an Oscar Webbs performance. I stood in the rubble, feet on what used to be Eleanor's kitchen, where we'd make spaghetti with too much garlic and not enough salt. The old books, her rocking chair where she read Little Women, all gone. But what shook me most was the small table by the east window, where I kept her urn. Every morning, sunlight would stream through the curtains and hit that urn just right. Now, there was only a charred table leg and a cracked piece of ceramic. As I clawed through the debris, desperate for anything, a wedding ring, the urn's lid, a voice came from behind. James Sullivan. It was Frank Thompson, the county sheriff, who once split a sandwich with me in Land Law 2. Beside him was a curly-haired reporter, notebook ready to stab anyone who said something dumb. Frank looked at me like I'd just lost my dog, wallet, and dignity all at once. "I'm so sorry, James," he fumbled. "The HOA said your place was in the rezoning area. They had papers from the city, stamped." I snatched the documents from his hand. It took me 4 seconds to see the signature wasn't mine. The property lines were redrawn like a kid's pirate map, and the notice was sent to an address I hadn't used since Bush was in office. "Frank," I said through gritted teeth, "who signed the demolition order?" He jerked his chin toward a building a mile away. "Pine Rest HOA office, Diane Westbrook." I jumped in my truck and floored it like my life was episode 3 of a Retired Guy Taken reboot. When the reporter yelled, "Mr. Sullivan, any comment?" I just turned back, eyes on the dust and ashes, and whispered, "Not yet. But soon everyone's going to have plenty to say about Pine Rest HOA. What do you think? Should Karen have sent a letter before bulldozing my house, or just included a coffee voucher? If you've never had your entire life valued at a $5,000 0-cents gift card, congratulations, you haven't hit the rock bottom of absurd. I got that, plus a liability waiver form. Short, sweet, and profoundly insulting. When I walked into the Pine Rest HOA office, I expected an apology, at least a "we messed up." Nope. I was greeted by a receptionist with a smile frozen like fake buttercream in a grocery store. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her eyes darting from my mud-caked boots to my disheveled hair. I gave my name. Her face shifted like an AI spotting a suspect. Then she made a call like she was alerting FBI headquarters. "James Sullivan is here and he looks very real." I was ushered in to meet Diane Westbrook, a blend of preschool teacher voice and CEO about to fire someone attitude. Her office looked like Pinterest designed it, then pumped it full of 3 layers of arrogance. She didn't stand, just raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Sullivan, we understand this is an unfortunate misunderstanding, but all procedures were legally executed." Then she slid over a $5,000 0-cents check and a liability release form. I stared at the papers, then at her. "You demolished my home, my wife's ashes, and that reporter Rachel hasn't even finished her headline, and you think I'll sign this?" I pulled out my phone, stopping the recording of our talk. Diane blanched. "You recorded me without permission?" I pocketed the device. "Ma'am, did you check who I was before you bulldozed my house?" She waved me off like I was a kid pulling a prank. "You're just an old hermit living on the edge of the woods. That ratty cabin was a blight on our community." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because she'd just grabbed a shovel and started digging her own grave without realizing it. As I left the office, I got a call from Gregory, my trust fund assistant. "Mr. Sullivan, we're auditing the subsidiary's quarter per your request. Are you still on for the asset review?" I glanced at Rachel Turner, pretending to read a newspaper in the lobby. "Push it to tomorrow, Gregory. I'm handling some real estate issues." I hung up just as Howard, the county records clerk, appeared by my truck. "James, here's the original map before the HOA adjusted it. You'll want to see this. Oh, and did you know you own the water company servicing Pine Res?" If I were a normal guy, I'd say, "Oh, thanks," but I'm James Sullivan, so I just said, "Time to offer them conditional water." Think Diane knows whose company supplies her water? Or does she still think it's heaven sent? Don't look away, because in the next part, I don't just give them water, I make them sign the bill, beg, and wonder who they dared to cross. Stick around for a twist that'll go down in HOA text, and drop a comment. Ever dreamed of going back and replaying the game with a Karen? If you've never had an entire neighborhood chant your name because you stopped giving them free water, welcome to my playground, where tap water isn't just for washing dishes, it's for washing away the sins of community mismanagement. The next morning, I sent an official notice to all Pine Rest Estates residents. Water rates up 300%, effective immediately. In the bottom right corner, in print as small as Karen's conscience, due to HOA failure to secure long-term agreements. I wasn't lying, they just didn't read the fine print, and maybe because they were used to sipping privileged water their whole lives, they were shocked to pay for what the crazy hermit in the woods supplied. The reaction? Like squeezing lemon on a salt wound, the HOA's phone lines melted. Diane, reigning clipboard queen, called an emergency meeting with a face stretched tighter than dental floss. Rachel Turner live-streamed residents lining up outside the HOA office, holding signs like, "I want to shower, not mortgage my house." Right then, I casually announced, "Each household gets one free 5-gallon jug per day as a humanitarian gesture." The irony? The first act of kindness came from the guy they tried to sue for ruining the landscape. Before Diane could catch her breath, she launched a PR campaign to save her image. She went on local TV, dressed like she was interviewing for the Senate, claiming we're under systematic attack by a malicious individual. Yeah, that malicious guy was me. The one she offered a check 2 days ago worth less than a mid-tier water purifier. I sent the station the audio from our meeting with a note, "Is this your new definition of goodwill?" The twist hit when Diane held a press conference, and nobody showed. Instead, dozens of residents flocked to my office, a rented coffee shop table, clutching water bills and asking, "Can we negotiate directly?" I looked at them and said politely, "Sure, if you agree to pause HOA dues until their board gets disinfected." They laughed, not because it was a joke, but because someone finally said out loud what they'd only whispered. Then Daniel, Diane's son, started texting me. He'd been a shadow before, but now he was messaging like he was auditioning for a reformed villain role. "I can't stand how my mom runs things anymore." Attached was a photo of her unsigned resignation letter. I didn't respond. I just texted back, "When you're ready to blow the whistle, blow it loud." Think if the water in those pipes could talk. It'd started story with, "Once upon a time, I flowed through an arrogant mansion." Stick around for the next part. The real shock isn't the water bill, but the one living under the same roof as the clipboard tyrant. And drop a comment. If you were the water, where would you flow? To people's hearts or a bank account? You know trouble's brewing when the HOA invites you to a tea party with an invite that reads, "Attire, formal, quiet, and easily controlled." I showed up in an old button-up, carrying a property map, loan records, and the smile of a man with nothing left to lose. The event unfolded under a canopy, as if nature was trying to soothe souls tormented by the HOA. Diane stood, her voice saccharine like mouthwash laced with venom. "We're committed to transparency, community, and standards." I nearly asked, "What standards? The ones where HOA dues buy leather chairs for boardrooms while residents need private sprinklers because of low water pressure?" I stood up, feeling like I was debating in a tiger's den. I unveiled the original property map, pointed to the access road, and calmly declared, "I'm presenting evidence that I own this community's main road." Diane sprang up like a jack-in-the-box wired to a security cam. "This is false and destructive information." I didn't say more, just pulled out the HOA's loan contract with a finance company I happen to own 85% of. A bespectacled neighbor piped up, "So, the HOA fees we're paying are going back to you?" I nodded, like I was confirming it's raining outside. The air thickened, like instant coffee mixed with laxatives. Diane shifted to level 2 verbal gymnastics, blaming software, secretaries, and a squirrel. Yes, I'm not kidding. She claimed a squirrel chewed through internet cables, causing misprinted property lines. I almost asked if the squirrel had a name so I could bill it for my legal fees. Right then, Daniel, her son, stood up. He walked like his shoes were marching to a conscience trial. His voice rang out, steady, unafraid. "I'm her son, and I confirm everything Mr. Sullivan said is true." Then he held up a file. Proof of forged documents, altered land records, and a recording of an internal meeting where Diane boasted, "I'll turn this place into my project, and anyone in my way will be erased." The vibe was now a Costco parking lot after closing, tense, crowded, and reeking of rage. A purple-hazed lady jumped up. "We pay HOA fees to be intimidated?" No one answered. Diane's face paled like a forgotten napkin in the wash. I took a breath, gave a slight bow, and closed. "I'm not here to win. I'm here to remind everyone you can't own a community while forgetting you're just hired help." The crowd clapped. Not the "oh thanks" kind, but the "fire her now" kind. If Diane were a movie character, what genre would she be? Horror, comedy, or nobody watches the sequel? Comment below and brace for the next part, where the clipboard becomes evidence and the HOA turns into a true crime podcast topic. My wife called it a tactical legal response. I called it Candace's doomsday. After the dramatic tea party showdown, I decided to play the final chess move. And this time, the queen was the law. The next morning, I sent a 47-page report, dense enough to make any lawyer yawn mid-sentence. Every page had a table of contents, appendices, charts, and a satellite map circling property lines like I was testifying before Congress. Recipients? The sheriff, state attorney, HOA board, local tax office, and the elementary school PTA, where Diane once donated cookies. Candace, with the calm of a cat shaved bald, countered by filing for a restraining order against me. Reason? She felt threatened by an overwhelming amount of data. The court took her filing, the judge sighed, and I got a hearing date. In court, Candace walked in like she was auditioning for a scandal-proof fashion show. High-neck dress, teary eyes, and a voice wobbling like spotty Wi-Fi. Her lawyer argued I was threatening residents' mental safety with unorthodox tactics. I didn't say much, just played the recording of an HOA meeting where Candace's voice rang out like a Marvel villain's manifesto. "I'll ruin her life like she ruined my sister's career." The courtroom went quiet, as a temple during a holiday fast. The judge flipped through my file, banged the gavel, and declared, "Restraining order issued against Candace." I glanced at my lawyer, winking like "end this chapter" with an exclamation point. But the real haymaker came from the HOA board. After reviewing my report, meeting minutes, and a Google Drive folder titled Candace's Fund Files, they held an internal vote. Result? Candace was booted from the HOA presidency like leftover pizza swatted off the counter by a cat. A silver-bearded resident proclaimed she used power like cheap perfume, spraying everywhere without knowing where it's needed. The next day, I got an email from the HOA's new lawyer, likely hired with their image rehab fund. It was polite but boiled down to, "Please stop. We're confused, scared, and out of budget." I replied with a link to Wikipedia's definition of consequences. The final twist came from the regional insurance company where Candace had filed a false claim for home repair funds. A clerk, my former student, spotted her application with 4 identical photos from Pinterest. Yep, she used Pinterest pics as damage evidence. Candace is now under investigation. The HOA invited me to be an honorary ethics reform advisor. I declined. But I still showed up to Candace's send-off. Not to gloat, but to see her one last time, before she learned the local true crime podcast was using her story for its season opener. What do you think Candace will say on the podcast's first episode? I just wanted the HOA to smell like jasmine? Comment below and don't look away, because the next part proves that sometimes justice doesn't knock, it kicks the gate down. The HOA thought Kelly was just a housewife who grew grass, brewed tea, and dodged drama. Wrong. She didn't grow grass, she trained it, and instead of avoiding trouble, Kelly brewed it like morning coffee, strong, aromatic, and enough to wake the whole neighborhood from their HOA power trip dream. A special meeting was called to elect an interim president after Diane vanished from both the HOA newsletter and the community directory. Some rumors said she fled to Florida. Others claimed she was learning to produce a Karen's Revenge podcast. Either way, the room stared at Kelly with eyes that screamed, "You do it." She stood, smiled like she was about to present a soup recipe, and said, "I'm not taking the president job. I'm taking the whiteboard and 3 bullet points. Bullet 1, scrap the tall grass fines." Everyone clapped, except the neighbor who once measured lawns with a tape ruler. Bullet 2, form a support group for veterans and women threatened by clipboards, dubbed GWWP. Group with actual spine people. And finally, start a neighborhood self-defense council where every resident learns to say, "Ma'am, get off my property," in Samuel L. Jackson's voice. The community shifted to a weird mode, fun, and people started hosting BBQs, swapping old stuff, holding Saturday garage markets, and stopped filing complaints about door paint colors. A 76-year-old grandma smiled for the first time in 3 HOA terms. A gay couple planted trees in their front yard without getting anonymous hate mail. A kid drew chalk art on the sidewalk without a public aesthetic violation fine. Candace's former HOA deputy, who once made residents sign pledges not to hang laundry after 8 p.m., quietly sold her house. No send-off, no soundtrack, just her beige SUV rolling out one afternoon like an unliked TikTok clip. Word was she moved to a stricter HOA, where you need permits to water plants or blink. Then, the weirdness began. A sign went up at the gate of Kelly's old farm. Ghost training grounds. Free-range grass, voluntary duties. The mail carrier started asking for selfies. A local station interviewed Kelly, calling her the woman who beat the HOA with a whiteboard. When the reporter asked, "What's your motivation?" Kelly smiled. "I just don't like being threatened by someone in a wide-brimmed hat wielding a fine list like they're God's deputy." The twist came when everyone thought the story was over. A lawyer from a neighboring community called. "We've heard about you. Can you train our neighborhood?" Kelly didn't answer. She sent a PDF titled "Start with a Whiteboard" and added, "As long as clipboards exist, you need self-defense." Inside the old HOA circle, Diane's loyalists started to shift. Martha, notorious for fining kids for kicking a soccer ball into her garage door 3 times, joined the no-fine BBQ group. She apologized. Everyone forgave her, except the soccer ball, still missing. Daniel, Diane's son, came back, not as the redeeming villain, but as someone wanting a fresh start. He showed up at a community meeting with a proposal: redirect part of the HOA fund to scholarships for urban planning students to raise a generation that wouldn't run an HOA like his mom did. Everyone nodded, even the old guy who once called Daniel that snake in a button-up. At the meeting's end, the residents gave Kelly a gift, a framed clipboard inscribed "Dangerous tools belong in museums." Below it, a cutout of Diane pointing, clipped from an old HOA newsletter. The gifter said, A reminder that when we forget a community's real purpose, clipboards become weapons. I looked at Kelly, no longer just the tomato-growing mom next door. She was a new archetype, proof you don't need a title to make an impact, just a refusal to stay silent. The HOA, still there, but now it listens. Like a cat that used to scratch everything, now curling up in your lap when it rains. What turns an ordinary person into an icon? A whiteboard, rational anger, or just refusing to back down from a clipboard? Share your thoughts below and don't look away. The epilogue is coming, revealing what happens when Diane returns as the host of a self-help talk show called I Was an HOA. From a woman once dismissed as a weedy housewife, Kelly became the symbol of a healed community, not through power, but through reason, disciplined kindness, and a whiteboard with more strategy than a campaign advisor. She didn't need a title to spark change. She needed the courage to stand tall before a clipboard and say, "I'm not scared of you." This ending isn't just for kicks. It shows you don't need to shout louder than anyone else to be heard. You just need to speak truth and hold steady against wrong. We learn that an HOA isn't the enemy, it's a mirror. Hand it to a tyrant and it reflects oppression. Give it to someone with heart and it lights the way for a neighborhood to step into a new chapter. And if you've followed this far, you've probably realized this story isn't just about an HOA. It's about you, about me, about anyone who's been underestimated, threatened by a clipboard, or boxed in by rules made by people living a lie. But it only takes one person to stand up, and a whiteboard can rewrite a community's future. If you vibe with what this story's saying about smart justice, courageous wit, and the power of someone seemingly ordinary, hit that like button, drop a killer comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next laugh and think tale, because who knows, the next story might be yours. Got your own hate-away horror story? Drop it in the comments. Let's laugh at the madness together. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we have another incredible story.